I want to thank our sponsor who brings this podcast to us each and every week, Ro. This past week, we got some news from Ro in terms of a massive sponsorship that they started with none other than Serena Williams. You have to have been living under a rock if you missed this news about Serena Williams and her use of GLP-1 medications, basically coming out and saying, hey, she couldn't do it alone. She was fighting some broken biology, and that the use of GLP-1 medications was what she seemed to have been missing. So you can check out our sponsors at Ro because we saw what Serena saw, and that the best platform to get it from is Ro. You can visit ro.co/OTP and learn more about their Ro Body program, where patients lose 15 to 20% of their body weight in a year, coupled with lifestyle modifications and medication when appropriately prescribed. Love our partners at Ro. Check them out at ro.co/OTP. Just a great program over there. I really appreciate Ro helping us to do this podcast each and every week. I am curious, for those of you who haven't checked in a while on the branded medications, if you've heard about our sponsors, Claimable is actually a company that provides a service that allows you to fight back against your insurance company denials. Now, insurance companies rely on 90% of the patients that get denials never fighting them. And they don't fight them because the process, quite frankly, is cumbersome and convoluted. So what Claimable does is they provide a platform that allows you to compile all of your case, and they help you build that medical case, that legal case, and then they help to create that case and send it off to all the interested parties. Claimable does all of that. You can check them out at getclaimable.com/OTP. Use code OTP10. It'll save you 10% off. You got a 50% shot at getting it covered. I'd say that's worth the $40 to see if you are one of the 50% that ultimately does get your medication covered. I do want to shout out our sponsor, Shape'a, who has continued to help me to stay on my journey. And the Shape'a actually changes the way we track our health. Instead of focusing in on that daily number, it helps us focus in on a pattern. And we want to stay in the pattern of weight loss. We don't want to get sidetracked or derailed by these day-to-day fluctuations. So no numbers, just colors to track your health trends, looking at things like your water weight and your body composition, and using that algorithmically to help you stay in a color-coded pattern that is simple and has a way of helping you stay engaged when you're with your health. Listen, when I'm engaged with the scale, it means I'm engaged with my health. And so Shape'a helps me to stay engaged with the scale. Check them out at myshape'a.com/OTP. Use code OTP30. It's going to save you 30% on the Shape'a scale. This is a wonderful tool for patients living with obesity. myshape'a.com/OTP. Use code OTP30 to save 30%. Love what they're doing at Shape'a.
You're about to be injected with the highest dose of information, empowerment, and inspiration. The On the Pen live experience has arrived. Get ready to embark on a transformative adventure. Welcome to On the Pen Live.
Welcome to On the Pen Live. Happy Thursday night. I'm your host, Dave Knapp, man on the Manjaro. That's why I'm here. You are on the pen with Wegovy, Saxenda, Victoza, Trulicity, Manjaro, ZEPBOUND, Compound of that pen. Welcome. It's good to see you here tonight. Thank you for being here with me. We've got a wonderful show lined up for you tonight. If you missed it last week, we gave you Dr. ROBYN Pashby's viral talk on obesity. Listen, let me know in the comments of this video if you saw that and what you thought about that. Just an amazing presentation. This week, we have Dr. ROBYN Pashby herself, fresh off of a trip overseas. She sat down with me and answered a bunch of questions that I had about the disease of obesity, her experience as a psychologist. We're going to get into all of that tonight. But before we do, would you hit that like, hit that bell, hit that sub for notifications? Make sure that you get all the updates that we do here at On the Pen. It has been a wild week in the obesity medicine news world. So I hope you'll go back and check out our podcast from earlier this week. We covered a ton of stuff. And next week, we will be getting back to our regularly scheduled program with the show in terms of all of the little bits and vignettes that we've done. Our friend Allie will be contributing again on a little bit of a newer segment for folks who are just starting their GLP-1 journey. And then for those who have been around for a while, Corey will be back with her maintenance minute. I'm really excited to bring those to you. Probably next week is when we'll get back to that, but really excited to bring you this interview with Dr. ROBYN Pashby today, because this is just a powerful, powerful discussion on the topic of her viral obesity talk from last week. She is such an amazing person. I really, really enjoyed my time sitting down with her. That's actually probably the understatement of a lifetime, and I think that'll show through in the interview tonight. She's a clinical health psychologist. She's the founder of DC Nutrition and Psychology and one of the leading voices helping patients and providers understand the lived experience of obesity. And my goodness, if that viral talk on obesity didn't do just that. Dr. Pashby has spent over 20 years listening to patients, carrying their stories, and teaching a trauma-informed approach to care that moves us away from what's wrong with you and towards what happened to you. She's not just a professional. She's actually someone who's lived this journey of obesity herself, and that's what makes her work hit so deep and hit so hard. We're lucky to have her here tonight to go beyond the viral talk that she gave last week and really dig into the heart of what we carry when we live with the disease of obesity. So I'm super excited. Welcome into On the Pen tonight, Dr. ROBYN Pashby. So last week we brought you an absolutely amazing presentation from Dr. ROBYN Pashby. This was a presentation that anyone in attendance has glowing reviews about. I got to watch it once I got back home, and Dr. Pashby put it up on YouTube, and immediately I knew we had to bring this to the On the Pen community. Just such a moving presentation called What We Carry. If you missed it, please go back and check that out, because if you missed it, you don't have to miss out. This is something that really, really encapsulates the lived experience of obesity. And I am just so thrilled now to bring you the second part, which is an interview with Dr. ROBYN Pashby. So let's welcome into On the Pen, Dr. ROBYN Pashby. ROBYN, welcome.
Hey, everyone. Thanks, Dave.
Yeah, it's so good to have you here. I hope that you're settling back in at home after your trip overseas, and it looked like you had a lot of fun. I saw some pictures. You were over there for work, right?
Yeah, so it was a women's health conference, and it was excellent.
Yeah. Sardinia, not a bad place to work.
I know.
Try
not to feel too badly for me.
Yeah. I feel absolutely terrible. That's a rough business expense. Yeah. I was just telling Dr. ROBYN that my mom, my own mother, went over to Italy this past 2 weeks. And so she spent time over there, and every day there were pictures and pictures and pictures and of all these places. And I know she was struck. It was her first time over there. She was struck by it. Like, this place is real.
It's amazing.
Like all these places that seemed like imagination or fairy tale from the movies are in person in front of you. Got to be kind of surreal, I would imagine.
Yes.
So Dr. Pashby, this was absolutely, I know that we were talking off camera, but I can't say it enough. This presentation, What We Carry, really, really, really encapsulated what it's like to live with the disease of obesity. And there's 1,000 things that we could talk about, like literally 1,000 things that you could pull out of this thing and we could discuss here. But I pulled out a few things that I wanted to specifically ask you about. There were just some things that really struck a chord with me. So you said something that I feel like stopped me dead in my tracks. You said, this talk isn't about weight. It's about the things that weigh you down.
Yes.
And I'm curious, because obviously that struck a chord, because we all have this baggage that we carry when we live with the disease of obesity, when we're fighting and fighting and fighting for years and years and years. I am curious, you're someone who talked a lot about, and I think that's sort of what makes it unique, is weaving in your own experiences. Can you tell us, like, when you relate this talk back to yourself and your own experience, what is something that even now you personally maybe find it's hard for you to put down?
What a great question. And can I take just a second and say how proud I am of you and this work, because it takes a lot of courage to do what you're doing. I get to do my work in private, mostly behind closed doors, and you have made it your business to be out in front of people. And I admire that very much. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
So I have been on my own weight journey my entire life. And I have lived with a parent who was actually at the convention. I don't think you got to meet her, but she was at the convention too. She lives with obesity her entire life. I have family members. So this has been something that has been part of the fabric of my existence for forever. And you asked me like what I struggle to put down now. And my honest answer is that it depends on the day. Because probably like you, there's days when I'm feeling okay, right? And often that relates to I'm feeling like I'm eating pretty well. I'm moving in a way that feels good to my body. Maybe my pants fit that day. All these triggers from outside. And I could sort of go about my day feeling mostly great. And then there's other days when, for example, after a week in Italy, where the first 4 courses are bread, it's hard, right? Even on vacation, it's still present with me. Just how many rules I've carried over the years about how much bread to eat or not eat, or comparisons of people when we're out on a boating trip and who's wearing what bathing suit and how do my arms look or how do my thighs look? Or, I mean, I don't want to pretend that I have this all figured out, by no means. I think I've just learned to ride the wave a little differently and recognize that how I feel today may not replicate how I feel tomorrow and vice versa. So I kind of have a little bit of everything in that backpack still with me some days, but I would say that overall, maybe they're like in a much smaller version. So it's not quite as heavy.
Like the little micro machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Like
mini brand.
I love that answer, because I think I would answer it the same exact way. Because even as I was watching, so for those of you who missed it, please go back and check it out. You don't have to miss out just because you missed it. It's the Downsized had it, we had it, and even Dr. Pashby has it up, and we'll link these in the description of these videos. But if you did miss it, so she's unpacking things literally out of a backpack on her back, and whether it's the calendar, the scale, the stopwatch, all of these things that these, like as you called them, outside influences that impact our mindset and our mental health around living with the disease of obesity. Everything you pulled out, I go, that one's me. And I was like, oh wait, that one's me. And so I found myself like, which one is mostly me? And I think I kind of landed on, for me, it was the scale, because the scale for me has always been, it's always had all the power. It's always had all the power. And it's something that I've struggled with, because like, okay, I'm not an idiot. Like, I know when I step on the scale, I didn't gain 5 pounds from yesterday just because I ate carbs. But even though I know that on an intellectual level, it doesn't matter. It still has the power to derail me. And I'm not talking like a little bit. I'm talking about it can derail me for weeks.
Yes.
Where I don't step back on that scale. And so I've been talking about this with my audience for a few weeks now, and I won't belabor it, but I am curious, of all the items that you put in this backpack to sort of unpack with people, how did you choose the specific items that you actually ended up putting in there? And what have your patients taught you about how deeply these different objects can wound them? So
I'm going to just reach over here because I'm at my office right now, and I have like sticky notes covering things in my office, because when a patient says something that lands on me in a way that is powerful, and I feel it. I don't even know a different way of saying it. I try to take a note of things like, I have over here things that I want to be invisible. Fire escape. Why? Because a patient shared with me how she lived in her freshman year of her college dorm. She lived near the end of the hall, near the fire escape end. And this group of kind of cool kids lived on the end closest to the actual stairwell. And she struggled a lot with her weight. And she used to use the fire escape to leave her room because she didn't want to walk past the group of kids by the top of the stairs. And I know that. I've lived versions of that, right? But I thought the fire escape, so I literally have this written down next to me here. And so I didn't choose those. Those have been chosen by thousands of patients, by thousands of micro moments in my own life. And I just got the pleasure of sharing them, you know, in like an actual visual form.
Wow, that fire escape analogy, I think everyone within the sound of our voices who's watching this, who's struggled with obesity, can relate to that. Their own fire escape story.
Yes.
That alone could probably be a book.
Exactly.
Fire escape. I mean, what is your fire escape? I'm curious if you're watching along, put it in the comments. What has your fire escape been? Because I know that we all have them in different forms. That's excellent. And so seeing all of these patients over the years, they really wrote the story as far as what goes into the backpack, right?
Yes.
Like it's just over and over you hear these things. And so really it's the patient's, the lived experience, which is probably why it connected so well.
Exactly. Right. I didn't write this. I mean, I did write it, but I didn't create this. Unfortunately, bias and stigma created this. Misinformation created this, and suffering created this, right? And my goal in putting all of this in the backpack and sharing it is actually to try to do the opposite, right? To give people accurate information about what is and isn't ours to carry, to help people feel seen in a way that we've been taught to hide our whole lives. So I was trying to correct some of those pieces of the puzzle and hopefully alleviate a little suffering.
Amazing. And I think it did. I mean, I know it did for me. It just was so validating. And even sort of the amens from the crowd when we aired your video was just like, yes, I knew that this was such a shared experience. In this talk, you actually share a story from elementary school. You're talking, I think it was like third grade, was it?
Third grade.
Where you did this weigh-in in gym class, and it felt like you were really sharing some trauma that you experienced around weight. So many of us, just like the fire escape story, so many of us have our elementary weigh-in moment where a light was shown on maybe even not dramatic weight, but you're different.
Yeah.
You're different. And that moment, I think everyone sort of has. How do people within the sound of our voice tonight, Dr. Pashby, how do people that have those stories and maybe even more intensely traumatic stories, because you got into some of the other things that can happen later in the speech to people, how do people start to heal that story of shame? What are some of the things that people can do?
I mean, if I had an easy button for the shame, I would have pushed it. I would push it every day for people. I guess what I could say is a couple things. One is, don't be afraid to ask for help. There are people out there like myself and my team we're the tiny little, group, but we work really hard to educate other psychologists, physicians, other people about what it's like to live with the disease of obesity so that people have safe places to go. So number one, ask for help. And I think the theme that comes out across the comments, both on your side and others, is like, oh, I thought I was the only one. I thought I was alone in this. And so even just by changing a little bit of that self-talk and remembering, like, this is a shared journey. And just because I experienced it doesn't mean I deserve it. I think like those little micro changes can actually have some meaning in everyday life. So for example, when I'm working with physicians, I advocate and teach about using a trauma-informed care approach to treating obesity. And in a nutshell, this is not my quote, it's a trauma-informed care quote. The switch that we're asking of healthcare providers is to change from a what's wrong with you stance to a what's happened to you stance. So imagine a doctor walking into an office, instead of thinking, oh, my patient in there is, this BMI, what's wrong with them that they can't lose weight? Imagine if that doctor took a second before opening the door and thought, I wonder what's happened to this person. It changes the entire tenor of the conversation, right? So those micro changes in how we think about circumstance and deservedness can really change things. And so I guess my plea to people would be to ask yourself the same question. Instead of what's wrong with me, what's happened to me, right? And what I was trying to do in this talk is highlight the way that living with obesity affects us. And it's not because there's something we've done wrong.
Yeah, I love that. And I think there's also a lot of power in naming the normalcy of the shared experience. Like, I think that has been an eye-opening thing for a lot of people. GLPs have created this sort of rallying point on the internet for a lot of people that have shared experiences. And what I have observed is, in my own life, being part of that community, is just, there is a certain amount of healing in just knowing that you're normal, in the sense of the thoughts that you're having, of the dumb things that you've done, like getting on the scale and letting it derail you because you think in your, heart, maybe not in your brain, but in your heart, like you failed because the scale went up 5 pounds, even though we all know these are daily normal fluctuations. But naming the normalcy of it and community, I think, is such a healing. It's not everything, but it's a step. I love that. You talk also about, towards the end, I believe it was, about a mask, and this idea of wearing a mask and smiling when you're sad, and then sort of just disappearing and withdrawing from our own lives. How do we start to reclaim our identity? This is something that I see especially in people who, I hate the term like reached goal, or I don't have a better way to couch it, because it's, the goal is a moving target. Health is a lifelong pursuit. But for those who maybe their initial goal was to lose the weight, and then they get to this point where they've healed their body to a certain extent. How do we start to reclaim our identity when we've been performing and withdrawing for so long?
It's so funny you say that, Dave, because what I wrote down, I have my sticky notes because that's how I roll. What I wrote down was not by losing weight, because I really want to disconnect this idea that reclamation of myself or my identity or my true self is through weight loss. I want to just eradicate that. Okay. Whether you're using a GLP or not, or you're post-surgery, or whatever your story is, that those two things need to be separate. I talk a lot about this with exercise, even like exercise is not about weight loss. Exercise is about mental health, like purely. And if we can start to separate all of these things that get so bunched up with weight loss, then we have a much easier road to doing those things. So for example, if I go back to exercise, I don't want to go walking to burn X number of calories. I want to go walking because it's a nice day in DC and we get like 6 a year and it helps my mood, right? So that's like a totally separate mindset. If I was going just to burn calories, I just wouldn't go because it would just take too long and I would have to blah, 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 right? So it's a much easier road to think about going out for a walk because I want to do it because it's a nice day. We think about reclaiming our identity. It can't be because our bodies are different, because our bodies are never a reflection of who we are. So we have to tap back into who are we underneath all of the body, independent of what its size it is. And sometimes that means, what are my values, right? Do I value time with my family? Do I value my community service? Do I value my profession? Do I value whatever, right? Time with my pets or something, volunteering. These are the types of things that we connect to. And once we start to identify our values, then we show up in places that value our values. Mm. So if it's religion, if it's whatever it is, that's how we start to reclaim. But I'm acting like that's so simple, right? To separate it from weight. And as you know, I've been doing this for more than 20 years. I know that is not simple, but it is possible to show up before or even independent of what your body's doing.
I love that. And I think it echoes what I've heard. All I have are the anecdotes of the community, but there's a lot of us at this point. And one of the common themes that I hear from people often when they're talking about their GLP-1 journey, specifically if you're using a GLP-1 medication to get healthier and to get to a healthier, more idealistic version of you, whatever that looks like, is the gift that the GLP gave them was that it freed their mind to be able to focus on those more core tenets of your personhood.
That's it. About 2 years ago, I gave a talk for the National Academies of Sciences, and it was when GLPs were really, starting to really take off in the pop press and everything. And I think I made a comment toward the end that my prediction was that people would use GLPs independent of how it impacted their weight, just because of the freedom it gave them in their psychological process. And I think that still is true. I think the freedom from the thoughts about food, the food noise, the obsessiveness about food and eating and all of those, it really is a gift that people are given back through treatment that I hope doesn't get lost in the hurry up about weight loss. Yeah,
I love that. I think that's true. And even though this gets a little bit out of maybe your area of focus in psychology, maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Do you see the same thing for people who maybe start taking semaglutide for alcohol addiction or opioid addiction? Do you see kind of the same thing?
Somewhat. Look, food is my area, right? But I have a lot of people because food is part of everyone's life. So a lot of people have co-occurring, fill in the blank, depression or anxiety or trauma or alcohol addiction or other substance addictions. And I do see that there's a little bit of change in that, the noise, just the noisy head stuff. But that can also be achieved via other mechanisms, other drugs and medications. So I just want to be really clear that it's not the only option. But in obesity treatment, by far, this is light years ahead of where we've been.
Right. Yeah, that's the quieting of the food noise. One of the coolest things that you did, just kind of subtly in your presentation, is I think it was the first thing you pulled out was just kind of quietly pulled out a sound machine, which played. I don't need to really pick it up on the video too much, but played in the background of your whole talk, right?
Yeah.
And then sort of near the end, it was like, hey, there's also this constant noise. And I thought that was such a brilliant way, because in the middle of fighting to lose all this baggage, you have this constant noise that's just driving, and it's biology. It's just driving against you to keep those food cues going, to those hunger signals going, which is, again, something that people feel a great deal of freedom from. One of your heaviest lines in this talk was that some of us followed the rules so closely that we stopped living. And others broke them so often that we felt like criminals. I'm the criminal. I mean, oftentimes, those rules were even weird. You had given an analogy. I can't remember exactly what it was, but just weird rules that we give ourselves. I think yours related to like working out and how you qualified working out in your mind.
Yeah.
And I've done that a lot, especially with like keto, because I've yo-yoed on the keto diet since I was like 17, 18 years old, and literally to today. It's like my go back to, and then I create all these little rules, and it's crazy. So what do you say to the person who still sort of feels trapped in that loop? What can they do today?
Yes. The rules thing, I swear, like 50% of what I do with clients is help echo back to them the rules that they are still carrying, because they don't even hear them anymore, right? So one of the, like I said, I love metaphors and analogies. I'll say they become like gravity. It's like you don't notice them until they're not there, right? Because all of us every day are living with gravity, taking its toll on our bodies. But it's only if we didn't have it that we would say, oh, gravity was a thing affecting me every day. And I think some of these rules are like that. We just don't even notice them. We don't even see them or hear them. But I have the gift of sitting on the outside and listening to how people talk. So when someone will say something like, oh, I was going to go exercise, but I forgot my hair tie or my sports bra, I'll be like, oh, I've actually said this to a patient. I get it. So like if you were staying in a hotel in New York City and you were 10 blocks from where you had to be and you were going there and you started walking, would you turn around and just say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't go to that dinner reservation. I forgot my hair tie. And they're like, no, right? They look at me like, you're crazy. Why are you asking that? And I'm like, oh, well, because you have a rule there that your hair has to be pulled back in a ponytail to exercise or something, right? I mean, they're so small and so little, but of course, over time, there's millions of them and they accumulate into all these behaviors. And so I try to help people just recognize them. And I would encourage people to think about what they are saying to themselves. Like part of therapy is learning to listen to yourself. And I do that by listening to you or to my patient, right? I have clients who she loves to tell this story, but she'll say, for the first year I saw her, she would say, I don't have any self-talk. I don't talk to myself, right? I talk to my cat, I talk to my friends, I don't talk to myself. And she relays this story about how she heard herself one day for the first time making a really derogatory comment about herself when she caught a reflection of herself in a window. And she said she literally turned around to say, who's saying that? She's like, oh, that's actually me. Like I'm saying that to me. And it was the first time she'd ever really heard herself. So I encourage listeners who feel like they're stuck in a loop to try to slow it down and listen to how you're talking to yourself, listen to what you're saying to yourself, because my guess is it's just like that sound machine in my video. It's been playing in the background there all the time. And only when I, actually had the spotlight directed on it, were people able to think, oh, I now I hear that. And I think that's the same with our self-talk.
Absolutely. I'm curious as you're saying all this, we psychologists, psychiatrists, pastors, counselors, we tend to put these people on a pedestal sometimes as if they're not people who live and deal with the same exact things we do. I'm curious as you're talking, if you've ever heard a patient say something or put something in a certain way that has illuminated things in your own self. Like I know you kind of, as we let off, you kind of talked about the fire escape thing and some sticky notes, but do you find yourself like, maybe that's why I do this? Does that ever happen to you, the expert?
Oh my gosh. I became an expert because I listened to my patients. That's it. I mean, yes, I almost went to a decade of graduate school. That aside,
neither here nor there.
That's a small thing. But if I'm honest, what has taught me about all of this are the people who I have the pleasure of listening to. And actually, some of my patients will say to me, don't you get sick of listening to me go on and on about blah, 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 or whatever? And I think you have no idea how there's not a cell in my body that is sick of listening to this, right? What I am sick of is the fact that you have to live with that going on in your head alone. That's what I'm sick of. And my patients have taught me literally everything I know. So yes, there have been many times when I'll hear them and think oh, I'm pretty sure I said that to my friend the other day or something like that. And I mean, this person that you're talking to is who I am as a therapist. So I'll say that to my patient. I'll be like, oh shit, you called me out on that, right? Or something. And we have a joke about it, because I think therapy doesn't have to be all hard. When we can laugh at ourselves and we can not feel ashamed to have thoughts that seem crazy when we say them out loud, I think people are more willing to talk about it and to change.
I think that it's so refreshing to hear someone in your position just talk like a human and be open about your own journey, because I think about the presentation that you gave, and you're somebody who's used to speaking to crowds, you're used to doing this, so like it's just part of what you do, but it's certainly not, I don't think it's easy for anyone to do, and especially when you're getting up on stage and you're talking about your own stuff. Like as you're unpacking this stuff, you have that story has tentacles into your own life. So I'm curious, because this was the first time you gave this particular presentation. What was it like to just emotionally deliver this talk, not just as a doctor, but somebody who, like, everything that you pulled out, including a teddy bear that was from your childhood, has an emotional connection?
Yeah. I weighed myself on stage. Really, I did. There's nothing in a million years that I could have imagined feeling like what I felt then. I mean, I don't know if of course, when I look at the video, I can tell that I was shaking, like actually shaking during the first part of my talk. I don't really shake anymore. I mean, I've spoken so many times in so many crowds and things that I don't really get nervous anymore. And I was shaking in the beginning of that talk because it was such a risk for me. It was such a step out of my traditional academic talk. And it took some recovery time. In fact, so I had the video about 2 weeks before I posted it, and I just needed time with it. I watched it several times. I did a lot of work on how I was feeling, and knowing that as this got amplified, I would hear more stories and I would feel more things. And I feel like I'm ready for that now, but it's a journey. I mean, some of the work I've done for the OAC is actually create like ways of talking to the advocates that are so amazing, that go on Capitol Hill, like I know you got to go, and do this work because I want to talk to them about the psychological costs of this advocacy work, right? Anytime you tell something, Brene Brown calls it a vulnerability hangover, right? And that's exactly right. When you get vulnerable, it leaves a mark. And I think people need to respect that. And I did my part in respecting that by just taking my time.
I mean, just even phrasing it that way, that it takes something from you for sure. Like a lot of content creators in the GLP and obesity space have made lots and lots of videos, and most of their videos will be them sharing their journey. And I always I don't know how you do that, because I do them once every few months. The last time I did it was like a 9-month period between videos. And I try to tell people and try to explain to people, like, this takes something out of me to do this. And I've never been able to quite articulate it very well, but you just said it beautifully. It does take a lot to be vulnerable, especially when you know that you're sharing something to the world, right? It's not as if you're sharing it only to people who are going to receive you and love you and build you up. You're receiving it to people who will come in and they will try to destroy you, because that's what they sort of live to do, is to just destroy you on the internet, because that's how they get their jollies. So that's like an extra level. So it definitely does take something. I appreciate the way that you put that. I have 2 questions left, and most of them and both of them are more in terms of like, kind of like leave people with a final thought. The first one would be at the end of your, near the end of your presentation, you were putting sticky notes, right, on yourself. These are things that we tell ourselves, right? If you could rewrite just one sticky note, one belief that universally it seems like people need to understand and name themselves today, what would that sticky note say?
Worthy. 100%. It makes me want to cry, honestly. I mean, I fought back tears that whole talk, and listening to the feedback at the end when the people were standing up and sharing their insights, I was tearing up. But it's worthiness, because I think and this goes so far beyond obesity, Dave, as I know you understand, right? But anytime people are different than what society tells us we should be, and whether that's ADHD or dyslexia, whether that's limb difference, whether that's needing to use mobility devices, whether that's obesity, whether that's, the list goes on and on. I think what hurts the most is just feeling not worthy of being a human being, not being seen. And so I think underneath so much of the negative self-talk is this idea of like worthiness, lacking worthiness. And I think that interferes with our ability to develop relationships. It interferes with our ability to develop a spiritual relationship. It interferes with our ability to be like really the type of productive members of society that people want to be. And in fact, you kind of brought up like internet trolls and all of that sort of thing. And I try really hard to even use that trauma-informed care approach to that and think not what's wrong with this person, but like what has happened to that person that is the way they cope.
Operate, right?
Right? Like what could have happened? And maybe that's naive but it works much better for me. It affects me differently when I take that on.
I love that. And I will be using that. I also am a sticky note person. This is actually one of the sticky notes that I had written during your thing. My sticky note says, you are a human being and you are worthy. And if there was one, I'm right there with you, because if there was one thing that I could just like say, I would like to be my legacy of whatever On the Pen is ultimately, is that people would take that away from it, that they would know that they have intrinsic value as a human being, and they're worthy. You're worthy of being in the rooms that you don't think you're being worthy of being in. You're worthy of being around the people you don't think you're worthy of being around, in the places, all of it. You're worthy. And I love that. So I'm so glad that would be your sticky note, because that would 100% be mine as well. Now, there are a lot of people watching this, and it is YouTube. So a lot of people doing a lot of different things. I know for me, when I typically watch YouTube, it's like I'm not actually watching it because I'm busy doing something else. I'm listening and I'm doing the dishes. Or like last night, I was deep cleaning our bathroom and our bedroom. And so I am not naive to think that there are people that are discovering this maybe for the first time, who are maybe looking at treating their obesity, but maybe they're in the middle. Maybe they're feeling shame from decisions that they made earlier in the day, whatever it may be. What do you want her to know before she turns this video off?
What a great question. You're really good at this. I think I would want people to know that obesity, number one, is a chronic disease and not your fault. Number two, that the mental health implications of obesity are real and significant, independent of whether you lose weight, gain weight, change weight 1,000 times. And both of them are worth treating. And that weight loss does not treat mental health conditions. Right? In the same way, like they both deserve attention. And I think even the best multidisciplinary programs out there don't always get that right. So sometimes you have to go on your own journey to find it. But any person that's been on a weight journey knows like persistence is key, right? Just keep trying.
Yeah, I appreciate that you said that, because literally 5 minutes before you and I started talking here, I was on the phone with somebody. And the phone call started with, hey, do these medications affect people's like mental health or personality? And so we had this long conversation, and really ultimately I find myself ill-equipped for most of these conversations. Like, these are meant for healthcare professionals, not for me. But, the one thing that I did encourage them, I said, when there's mental health struggles, losing weight doesn't fix those. They don't go away because you lost weight. In fact, they just, at best, they change.
Right.
And so I would so encourage anyone who's watching who struggles with obesity, address the mental side. It's something that I have been lagging on for sure personally, but working on a lot of things internally, especially over the last 4 or 5 months. I would encourage you to reach out, get help, because it's not just about taking a shot and losing weight. It's about dealing with all of the baggage and letting go, learning to let go. And those take real skills, right? That we're not necessarily equipped with naturally. We need to be led to, some of those skills to deal with some of that baggage and to really ultimately take everything out of that backpack and leave it. ROBYN, this was a delightful conversation. Where can people find you and learn more about what you do?
Well, so my website's there, and that's my practice website. I have, like a bio on that website, but I'm on LinkedIn and Instagram and Facebook, maybe TikTok someday if I can sort of make that jump eventually. But truthfully, I'll be at every OAC convention as well. I'll be at Obesity Week in Atlanta with you. I think
Great.
You'll be there. And so pretty much anything obesity related, you can find me.
Love it. Love it. Love it. Love it. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you for being here. This was a pleasure. And I know people will have a lot of great things to say about what you shared here. So I'm really grateful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
We'll do it again. Dr. ROBYN got choked up there. Dr. ROBYN Pashby. What an amazing interview that was. An amazing conversation. What resonated with you? I'm really curious to hear from you all. What about that conversation, and maybe what about Dr. ROBYN's presentation resonated with you? I know for me, it was the fire escape. Just thinking about all the things that we've avoided because of our weight, all of the looks, all of the stares, all of the comments, all of the things that we know that we're going to face. And what have we avoided in life? How have we avoided living to avoid those moments? I know for me, there have been countless. I'm sure there have been for you. Curious to hear if you'd like to share what those were for you. If you don't feel comfortable sharing it publicly, you can always send me an email to dave@onthepen.com. But I really appreciate Dr. Pashby coming and sharing her perspective, sharing a little bit of a deeper dive and how she came up with the viral obesity talk. I hope that you'll go back and check it. I think over 7,000 of you watched that video, which is definitely a higher viewed video for YouTube for me. And so I really appreciate you checking that out. If you missed it, please jump into the description of the video, check it out. If you're on the podcast, it is a good reason to go over and check out the YouTube channel to see the video version of that. Just wouldn't translate, I don't think, over the audio only quite as well. So please check it out. These will start going up on the podcast. So if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, any of those platforms, you can get our podcast. We jumped into the top 20s this week for the podcast. So thank you for listening. If you're wanting to help out what we do here, you can jump over and give the podcast a 5-star rating or review. That really helps. If you're watching here on YouTube, a thumbs up, a comment, hitting the bell for notifications. And if you watch all these videos, but you haven't hit the subscribe button, those can help what we do too. Really appreciate those of you who help us out in that way. If you want to go deeper with On the Pen and what we do here, you can go to obesity.news, type that into your browser. You can learn more about some of the news articles that float out during the week. We deliver it right to your inbox there. That's our newsletter. And if you want to check out any of the links that we talk about in our podcast or on our live show, you can always go to otplinks.com. That's new this week. It's OTP for On the Pen. Sorry, my camera's mirrored today for whatever reason, but you go to otplinks.com, and that's going to take you right to all the links that we have assembled for you. There's great resources there, like how to get the ZEPBOUND savings card, how to get savings on Ozempic and Wegovy. There's lots about how to join a clinical trial. There's a link to literally all the obesity clinical trials that are going on right now. So we've assembled a lot of great resources for you to check out at otplinks.com. And you can check out our sponsors who are all listed there as well. So thank you for being here. Thank you for being the best part of what we do at On the Pen. It's great to have this live show back with you and spend some time with you. Now, for this upcoming week, my prayer for you, each and every one of you, is that the Lord would bless you and keep you, cause his face to shine upon you, and be so gracious to you in the week that you have on your journey of reaching a healthier version for yourself. If what we do here is beneficial to you, is helpful in any way, please hit that thumbs up button before you go, and we'll catch you on the next one.